was Boston?
Hey, Boston was amazing. It was my 11th year in a row attending. Um, I actually ran it the last 10 years. So this year I did not run it. I kind of made the choice to say no to some things this year to like prioritize my health and recovery from a stress fracture. So I was there supporting folks, kind of working. I work with Adidas Running on the global side of communities. And um, it was just like, it was everything that I like about Boston, which is you are there amongst the kind of like running royalty, like Catherine Switzer, like Joan Benoit Samuelson. Like these folks are just walking around. And then you're also around like young creatives who are doing interesting things in the running space. And then all these people who worked really hard to be there, whether it was to qualify or they like fundraised for a charity. But like Boston, for a lot of people, is this like once in a lifetime experience. So it definitely holds a lot of energy and emotions.
So this is the first time in 11 years you've been there not as a participant.
Yeah.
And was it all like 100% positive, or did you like at any point just kind of wish you were running? Like, did you miss being a part of it that way?
Yeah, I think like to put it into context, it's first off, it's my favorite road marathon. Um, I think it's so special and I've been able to run it because I work for Adidas. So it last year was like 10 years of working with Adidas. So it kind of like holds this like special place for me as like the work that I do, and then like I love the course and I love the experience. But I I see myself more now as like an ultra runner, and I've been training for this 100-mile race. And last year I overtrained and I got a stress fracture, and wasn't basically had to sit out the rest of my season. And it just was like really eye-opening to me that I can't do everything that I want to do, and that I need to make smarter decisions and be more intentional. And one of the things that I have been known to do is like say yes to everything. So like, yeah, I would say yes to every race that I had an opportunity to run, and every experience and every adventure. And I kind of did that last year, and I had already run like 3 ultra marathons by May and was just like I just really overdid it. So even though like Boston is so special to me, and it's hard to watch people run because you like want to run if you're a runner. It like makes you want to run. Um, I I really was okay to just be there to support other people this time. And I would say I had the second best experience to running, which is that I had the opportunity to be right at the finish line. And there are grandstands that basically like overlook the actual finish line. So I got to be there, and I basically like stood there at the finish and like didn't leave for hours and hours and hours because I was so just like I was just so in love with how people were finishing that race because, people are like collapsing. They're running across like looking like they could still run. Like people were crossing the finish line and throwing up immediately. Like it was everything happening, but people just were so like they gave it their all. They were so happy. There was so many like folks helping each other. It just was like really joyful. So I felt very lucky to be there, like witnessing people's Boston Marathon.
It is like really an incredible thing. I mean, running the marathon is obviously the hard part, and they deserve the most recognition for the people who are a part of it. But as someone who I've traveled to a bunch of them with Sarah, my girlfriend, and I get to kind of watch it and be a part of all of it without the hard part of running. And just because I don't know if you know or anyone knows, I'm a wheelchair user. So they are always incredibly nice to me, and they let me through like all the barriers. I'm essentially at the finish line as well, watching people come across, and it's such like it is actually the coolest thing probably I've ever done is to go to these cities and watch people finish, and it's really interesting you would bring this up. I would have never thought to talk about this on here, but watching the people finishing and seeing the variation between people finishing, like you're right, people cross the finish line, immediately puke. Or like not pass out, but like lay down. Some people cross and look like they're not phased at all. Like they just ran a marathon and now they could go to work or carry on with their day. They don't look at all affected. It's so interesting to gauge like how it is for people, and you never know like maybe some people are just way better at compartmentalizing it and looking like they're handling it. You don't know like who's going through what, but it's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to watch. I always post up right at the finish line to watch Sarah come across and then watch everyone else, and it's so interesting just watching all the different people and how everyone is different at that finish line.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it's funny because when I got the injury in July, I had all these races that I was signed up for, like leading up to this 100 miler. And so instead of running them, I went and cheered for all of them. And like being on that other side where you're like witnessing people is also, we were talking about it earlier, it just kind of like it feels really good. I don't know, to like see people doing this thing. And typically though, I watch from maybe like I went to Berlin Marathon and I was at like mile 23. So people are still kind of like not super happy because they're in like a really dark spot in the race. So you see like a darker side of the marathon, like at some of these cheer zones. But the finish line is just like, wow, I don't think I've ever been at a finish line before. And I was like, like you said, like the range of emotions was just, it was so beautiful and interesting and different.
So you were in Berlin this past September, might it have been?
Yes.
We were there as well.
Oh, cool. Where were you?
I don't even. Well, actually, you know what? I'll get distracted if I pull it up now. But I have a video clip from where I was, where Sarah ran by, so I can probably tell from there exactly where I was. But yeah, it was her first time running that one. We actually met. Had dinner with Mikey Kratzer a couple nights before, and we were just hanging out, experiencing everything. I live in the dream. I'm experiencing it without any of the hard parts. There is actually training and eating and sleeping and doing all the responsible stuff. But yeah, we were out there And actually, you know what? Just out of curiosity, you said Boston is your favorite road race. Do you, if you can say it without getting in trouble, what's your least favorite of the majors?
Well, you know what's funny about that is I even though I've been running marathons for close to 20 years, I never got the marathon majors bug. Like everyone else is like six-star running and like some people have done it multiple times. I don't know why. That was never like my agenda. So I've never done Tokyo, I've never done London, and I've never done Chicago. And I was actually signed up for Chicago 3 times, and it fell through because of COVID stuff. So basically, the only majors I've run are New York, Berlin, and Boston, and I've ran all of them multiple times. And I actually would say Berlin is my least favorite major, not because necessarily the race, it basically like I don't like flat courses. So I'm like the opposite probably of most road runners. Like most road runners are like, give me a Berlin or a Chicago. It's a flat course. I can run it fast. For me, like actually, this is probably why I like trail running. I like terrain. I like variation. So I love hills. Um, I just think my body responds better to switching muscle groups, which you do if you're running up and then running down or a lot of turning. So I feel physically better in like a New York City where there's a lot of hills or like a Boston. Like they're kind of similar elevation profiles. Um, but Berlin always just kind of like I don't love how my body feels after it. So of the majors, I would say it's my least favorite. But it's one of my favorite cities and the vibes and the people. Like I love going to Berlin and like being around the folks in Berlin. Like Berlin holds a special place for me as well. But least favorite major marathon so far.
Okay, first of all, sorry, I assume maybe this is why you shouldn't assume things. I guessed based on just knowing a bit about you and seeing your media that you had done them all multiple times. I just thought you were the ultimate like running beast and you'd done them all as many as Boston. So hopefully that doesn't rub salt in the wounds about Chicago. We, or I'm saying we as if we're an entity. Sarah's least favorite is Berlin as well for almost I think the same reasons. And
Mhm.
also I think maybe I have to get fact checked, but I think last year's marathon was the hottest day the Berlin Marathon has ever been. Like it was the
Yeah.
warmest out of all the years.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was it was hard watching people suffer. It was so hot. It was so hot.
I mean I'm getting wheeled around by a friend of mine in the shade, like totally as least active as possible, and I felt like this is too hot of a day to be wearing shorts in the shade watching the marathon, let alone running the marathon. I can't believe anyone did.
Yeah, I know. But actually, kind of going back to the our point of like when you're at the finish and you see some people are like immediately vomiting, other people are like skipping away, like they could run 10 more miles. I saw that. That was something that stood out to me at Berlin. And I think that's something that you see when like the weather is really challenging. And it was like this at Boston in 2018 when we had like torrential downpour and it was like 35-mile-an-hour headwinds and it was freezing. Like when the conditions are really difficult, whether it's too cold or too hot or too wet or too windy, it's so interesting to see how people respond to that. Because I think, like at Boston in 2018, for example, they said the majority of finishers were women, which was really interesting. And I could see it. One, because apparently like women also like, well, not apparently, women also have more fat on their bodies, so like you could kind of keep yourself warmer when it's really cold. And like people were getting hypothermic who like were maybe didn't have as much like body fat. And then also like just though when the conditions are really crazy, it starts to become more like an ultra marathon where you're dealing with like ultra races are, it's common that you're just dealing with like the most challenging terrain or the most challenging weather or the most challenging distance. So it's kind of interesting, like a Berlin when it was, the weather was really, really hot. It was interesting to watch like who was, some people were thriving in it and then other people were like really suffering.
Yeah, that's actually thriving is the exact word I was gonna use when I asked. Is it like one of those things where 2018 might be a bad year for most people, but was that one of your like most memorable years?
I definitely memorable, um, because of how crazy it was. And that was also the year that like Des Linden won. It was like people, a lot of the elite field was dropping out because they were getting hypothermic. Um, and it was just so interesting because of how hard it was. Like I'll never forget it. Like it stays in my mind as like, okay, if I could do that and finish, like I could do one, I could probably do anything. Like you're like, whoa, I did that. And two, it was just like some of the things that happened out there were so memorable. Like for example, it was it was so windy at the start and it was so cold that people did not take their throwaway clothes off. Like normally you have throwaway clothes and people were wearing ponchos and they were wearing like another layer and then under that is like your race outfit. But it was so bad that everyone around me still had all their throwaway clothes on. So it was like a lot of people like running in ponchos, and then the ponchos were like filling up with water. And so that was keeping you like colder. And so at a certain point, I couldn't use my hands anymore. Like my hands were completely numb. They were just like claws, basically. And so when I would go into the aid station where there was water, also, by the way, all the volunteers were there, just standing there, like still giving out water, giving out Gatorade. So I just remember thanking like every single volunteer because at least we were moving. They were standing there just like drenched and like in the cold. So I would come into an aid station and I would have to ask them to go into my pocket and pull out my gel and open my gel for me and then like feed me my gel. It was just like, it was so crazy, like the whole experience. And then I remember meeting a guy somewhere around mile 25, and we both had our ponchos on, and it was his first Boston. And we just decided we were going to run the last mile together. And, it was like things like that, like those stand out to me. And sometimes maybe like the when things go wrong, like you learn more than when things go right. I don't know.
No, I subscribe to that thought too. When it's happening, it's never good to have a bunch of stuff going wrong, of course, in any lane of life. But after the fact, I think looking back on things that went wrong, you most of the times take more from that and learn more to apply in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Insane that that was his first marathon. I wonder if like he can do. I mean, like you said, maybe he can do anything in life now that he did that. But I feel any run for the rest of his life is not gonna be that bad.
Exactly.
I wonder. I wonder what he's up to. He could. I mean, that could breed a whole generation of like Terminator runners.
Right. Either that or he was like, I will never run a marathon again.
Yeah, yeah, no, that would be my approach, the defeatist one. I would definitely go that way, but I would hope it had a positive effect.
I know. Hopefully.
So okay, I have a bunch of questions. Hopefully I can piece them together in a somewhat cohesive manner, but I'm really curious about like you've been running obviously for years. I don't want to date you or make you feel old, but it seems like you have a impressive, very impressive resume dating years ago. So I'm wondering first, are you born and raised in New York or did you start running elsewhere?
I am an Ohioan born in Cleveland. Um, I started running when I was around 12. Um, Track and field. I got thrown into a field day event. So we had field day, which was like the last day of school in middle school. Um, everyone would like compete against each other from your classroom. So I guess my gym teacher like put me into the 4x100 meter relay. And it's a memorable moment for me because it was like the first time I remember running. Obviously, when you're a kid, you like running around a lot, but it's the first memory I have of running. And I remember just like running really fast and like loving that feeling and like feeling very free. So I had a talent for it. So I joined the track team. So I was a track and field kid from 12 to 18. And then I moved to Michigan for undergrad. I went to art school. Like I had an opportunity to play sports in college because I actually my main sport was volleyball, and I had some offers, some scholarship offers for volleyball. But at that time, which was the 90s, um, I just didn't see a career path like in sports or volleyball. So I went the other way. I went to art school. And sadly, like often arts and sports are, or for at least previously, a lot of art schools don't have sports. They like expect you to spend all of your time in the studio. So that was a different type of discipline. And then I applied to grad school when I was 21 and I got into NYU and I moved to New York. By the time I was 23, I moved to New York and then I've been here ever since. Over 20 years. So I think we're pushing up on 23 or 24 years in New York.
I really like the idea. Hopefully, it's not offensive to anyone that you chose art school as a career path, like over something else. A lot of people I know go to art school and then don't necessarily get a job directly after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the very specific thing was that I applied to the architecture program, and I got into this architecture program. And for me, I was like, I love art, I like math. I think like I love the idea of like drafting. I took architectural drafting in high school. So in my mind, I was going to become an architect. And I got into this program. And when you get into architecture school, I went to Michigan, they make you do a year in the art school of like foundational like art classes, and the two schools are connected. And then you get a mentor who's already in the architecture program, like an older student. And basically my mentor like pushed me to not do it. Like after my like year, my foundational year in art school, she was like, yeah, you should not do architecture. Like it's like basically like all those students were really burnt out. And it was, I thought art school was kind of intense because you'd have like 3 or 4 hour studio classes. You'd be up in the studio working all night and like pulling a lot of all nighters. But like the architecture students were like all nighters all of the time. So I basically stayed in the art school, and then ultimately with that degree became like I was teaching art in Detroit, like right out of undergrad, and I worked with an art therapist, um, where I was teaching in this charter school, and I loved what the art therapist was doing, and I like really saw like the power of art as a healing modality, and as like a strong form of expression. So I applied to NYU's art therapy program. So I came to New York to study art therapy, and I became an art therapist.
There's something about art school teachers. I feel good art school teachers advise their students not to go to art school because I also had a really good teacher in art school that after a while of us talking and me kind of I would show her things that I was working on outside of class, like zines I was making or photos I was taking that weren't for assignment. And eventually she just called me into her office and basically told me, like, just do this on your own. Like, you're gonna spend years and money here. You could just do it now on your own. And that was like, she one of the best teachers I've ever had, and maybe the best advice I was ever given was to not further school while I was in school. So I wonder if that's a thing if teachers advise certain students not to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when you're like 17, 18, a lot of things seem like a good idea. And I was like, I love art. I'm like super passionate about this. Like, I'm going to do it. And I definitely think, the premium price tag on art school, once you get there, you're like, whoa. Like I either need to I remember like making a promise to myself, like that I was gonna do something with it. Like I was like, if you're gonna, because I also had to pay my way through college. Like I'm one of 8 kids. I grew up really poor, like extremely poor. And so I had scholarships, which were great. And I also knew like it was on me. So I was like, if I'm gonna make this investment, I need to follow through. I was like, I have to do something with this. But like even like so many of my peers, like did not do anything with an art school degree. or like went even like people I went to grad school with who studied art therapy like never became art therapists. And I was just like, damn. So yeah, like college is really interesting. I When I came out of college, like undergrad, and then also grad school, I primarily worked with teenagers. So I worked in a high school, I worked at a program with teens. And I just really I love teenagers. They're like my favorite people. Um, I think because they're in this like transitional space and like they have so much like life and energy and questions, but also like they want, they like are curious, but they want guidance too. And like so many times I definitely told people like don't just go to college. Like if you don't know, like don't just go. Like it's a big investment and like there are other directions that you could go in that would be more that you could be more successful. And I think like I don't know, when I was in high school, I don't feel like I got the best guidance. Like my guidance counselor was not that great. Um he actually told me that I would not like get into college, like the college I wanted to go to. And I got in and I went. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think when I was in high school, it was just sort of like either you go into the army or you go to college. It was like that was like those were the two options in Ohio. It's like you're gonna like go this way or you're gonna go that way. And I think in the work that I did for a long time with teenagers was like, let's actually see that there's a lot of choices. Like, let's see that we have a lot of options, that there's a lot of different ways to live. And like on that note, we we had like a career day at this high school I was working at. And typically career day was just like the army comes, the navy comes, the police department comes, and then there's like a lawyer or a doctor. And it was like I was like, you know what? This is bullshit. There's so many other things you can do in your life. And this is what we're showing like high school juniors and seniors is like you have these options. So I just invited like all of my friends to come and speak. And it was like people who are like stylists, people who um, design like the windows at a store. It was like people who worked in marketing and graphic designers. And it was so fun because it was like we were presenting all of these different options and the students were really into it because a lot of times like if you don't know anyone who's a graphic designer, like how would you even think about that as a career choice? So anyways, I'm on a tangent.
Oh no, it's incredible attendance. Always welcome. I think it's funny that I'm talking about the cool teachers who might advise students not to always further school, and then it sounds like you were actually one of these cool teachers advising students that they might not need to further school.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was. And to be honest, like one of the reasons why, like a big reason for me is that I saw some of my siblings do this as well. Like go to college, do a couple years, and then find out it's not for them, and then drop out, and then they have to pay for those years. So it's like you didn't get the degree, you still have to pay like the thousands and thousands of dollars for college. And like ultimately, it wasn't the right path and you didn't need it. So, yeah, I think for me, I was like, obviously go to college if that is part of your journey, but it doesn't have to be. There's options.
It would be interesting. Like I know that wasn't done for the accolades, but it would be cool if you could somehow track how many people were actually affected by you implementing, like bringing in other people to talk to the school about what they could do? I wonder if you could like quantify how many of those students went on to something that wasn't the army or being a police officer because of it.
Yeah, I wish.
Uh, all right. Now I want to ask you. I mean, you've been in New York for a while. I know New York as itself was less safe back then for anyone, like male or female. But then also, like being a runner in New York and then being a female runner in New York back then, like it must be such a change like now nowadays compared to how it was even 20 years ago when you got there and started all this, right? Like what was it, maybe a dumb question, but what was it like to be a runner in New York or a female runner 20 years ago?
Yeah, I love that question. Well, so I'll share from my experience was that, and this is early, this is 2003. Um, I live in Brooklyn. I've always lived in Brooklyn. And I was fortunate that I lived pretty close to Prospect Park, which is basically like the Central Park of Brooklyn. And so I just would go run the park loop like as often as I wanted. And that was it. Like I only ran there for, maybe the first 8 months that I lived in New York. It did not even occur to me that you could run anywhere else. I was like, this is where everyone is going. And, I'd go do my loops of the park. And it was also back then, you would just see like the same people every day. So when you went to the park, you'd see the same familiar faces. And I knew the cyclists that were there and I knew the runners. And, it was like, that in itself felt like a safe space, but you didn't go after dark for sure. And, it was like primarily because I was also working, I was bartending and like working at night. So I probably was doing it in the safe hours, like the afternoon. Um, and then I, because of my nightlife life, um, I was working at this bar to pay the bills, and Mike Saes, who started Bridgerunners, lived across the street. This was in the neighborhood of Nolita, which is like north of Little Italy, like downtown, kind of like adjacent to like Soho and Chinatown and Lower East Side. He would come in to like the bar that I worked at, bar restaurant, and then I would see him out because I also was like heavy into nightlife. I just loved going dancing and clubbing, and um, so I would see him out, and I don't know. One day he was like, "Hey, I'm doing this kind of like running thing. You should come." And I didn't go for a long time, maybe like a couple months, and then he was persistent, and then finally one day I like showed up, and his runs were at night. And so it was in the dark, and I don't think I had ever ran in the dark. Like I didn't, it wasn't like something you would do, I think. Um, at least as a woman. So I showed up to the meetup point, and it was three guys and me, and they were just running like through the streets and like over the bridges. And I loved it because it was so different. And it was like the thing about bridge runners was that they were not, they were so kind of like like counterculture to what existed in running back then, which is like I think runners were primarily just running in the parks, like Central Park or, like Prospect Park, or on the tracks. There were like amateur track clubs, but those were typically like runners who had had a competitive life running in college. So it was like there was the stereotype of who was a runner. Like I didn't consider myself a runner. I think was like, yeah, I jog. Like I just jog for my health and well-being. But I wasn't like I didn't have any concept of marathons or like races um outside of like what I had experienced as a track athlete. So I started running with Bridgerunners and it like opened up this world. I mean, and honestly, we were creating it at that time too, which was like people who didn't look like runners, people didn't have a running background, people who were not in shape, like getting together once a week and running and like running through the alleyways, like running through the neighborhoods, running through places that people did not run. And it was so weird to the outside person looking in that, people would be like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like see a group of us like running through the streets. It was kind of a radical act. But I I think it took me years later to like really understand the impact it had on me as a woman, which was that like I never would have had those experiences to be able to run through the streets at night because it was not safe. And I was even telling a friend was in town yesterday and we went for a run with the home run guys and which are the home run guys are like very similar to what Bridge Runners was, which is like just running through the streets and like making your own route and like not worrying about pace or distance. And I was telling him like, oh, like back in the day, it was not like safe to just be like walking around at night by yourself. Like you would never have your cell phone out. Like you had to have it tucked away. You had to have your head on a swivel. Like I remember getting a bicycle because I was like, it doesn't feel safe to like walk from the train to my house at night. And like having a bike made me feel safe. So just like it, yeah, it was a different time. And when I think about like what Bridge Runners did for me as a runner, as a woman, was like it gave me access to like New York in a way that I would never have had um, by myself or on my own.
That's amazing. I don't think I've ever had such a smooth segue into my questioning. My next three questions jotted down here where I wanted to know about bridge runners and how you were involved from the beginning. I also was curious about how weird the whole thing like back then just running around New York must have been so strange to almost everyone because it was so new at that point. And then I also was curious if running allowed you to be out in the city and made it safer than it would be to walk around the city. Like, were you in places because you were running that you wouldn't have been normally?
Yes. So I'll answer that question first. And it's funny because I was with Terrence. Terrence Gershberg was the first coach that came, like professional coach who came to Bridge Runners. I think we had we had like a Nike sponsorship, and I think Nike was like, these guys need to like understand running a little better because we were just willy-nilly like running, like just running, and not really like knowing like anything about pacing or fueling or like all the things you most runners know about now. We were just like, all right, let's just go and like see where we go. And then, sometimes it would be like 8 miles later, and people had never run more than like 2 miles. And now they're on this like 8 mile run, and we're somewhere deep in Brooklyn. Um, that was like a regular night with Bridgerunners. And we would run. I remember, so I was talking to Terrence, um, and he was there in the early days, and we were reminiscing about running through South Williamsburg. So like there's an area in South Williamsburg where it's a mixture of it's like a Jewish neighborhood, and then it's also like Puerto Rican neighborhood, and then there's a bunch of like housing projects. And we were running through the housing projects because Saes loved to just like take the whatever, like the off the beaten path areas. And we're running through there, and Terrence had like pink socks on, which I guess just like wasn't cool. And so these like teenagers were like started chasing us. And we literally had to like take off because we were like, we're gonna get jumped, like we're gonna get beat up. And they like in particular, they like didn't, I guess they didn't like his pink socks. Maybe they thought that represented something or whatever. But yeah, I'll never forget that because we literally had to like sprint out of there. And yeah, it was just like stuff like that where you would see things, you'd be in places that your feet could take you, that you would not have otherwise, you would not have walked there. And we could run there as a group. So it wasn't like you would not probably run there by yourself. But if you're in a group, it just felt, you felt safer. And also we had the ability to run away if we needed to. So yeah, like I think today, like the the New York of today definitely feels like a very different place. Um, I still don't love running at night alone. Like I pick, if I do have to do it, I pick very specific routes because it's still just not really safe as a woman, unfortunately. But that's also why I created spaces like Girls Run NYC, which is now 12 years old, so that we run at night, and it's so that you have like a group of people that you're with that allows you this opportunity to do these things. But yeah, like when I joined Bridgerunners, that very first run that I went to, I was hooked from the beginning. Like I loved it. I felt like one, like I just saw New York in a really different way, and it was so exciting. Two, I was the only girl on that run, and these guys were just so nice to me. Like they were like so happy that I came. And I was like, all right, like they were like, you got to come back. I remember Sace himself is like, he's like just so kind of like fatherly. He's like fatherly figure. He's always been like, like kind of like a family member to me. Um, I really looked up to him in a lot of ways. And also, not as my father, but like more like probably like an older brother in a way. Um, he just was like, he's like a instigator. So it's like if you showed up and you ran 4 miles, he was like, well, if you could do four, then you can definitely do 10. Like, he was just like, he was always pushing people to do more. And I remember he had like a bib for the New York City half marathon the first year they were hosting it. And he was like, yeah, you should run this half marathon. And I had never ran more than 5 miles. And he was like, well, if you can do five, you can definitely do the half. And I was like, okay. And I did it.
That's incredible. People with that mindset are like very important. Sometimes people don't realize, but you need someone in your circle like pushing everyone. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And even though like it didn't feel great,
Yeah,
but you were like, oh, I did that. Um, yeah, we need people, we need instigators. So I've like definitely, I was one of the like I was like the first female like captain with Bridgerunners, and then spun off other stuff later. But I ran with them for 7 years, like hardcore. And I've definitely, like, if you would consider it like passing the torch, like I am that instigator that gets people to like do more. And it's kind of like a running joke. Some of the girls, like we ended up starting like an ultra marathon team by accident. And so we have this big squad of girls that run ultras and do like trails and stuff. And they kind of joke that like I like to ultratize everything. It's like if you come out for a run, like, and you kind of get tricked into doing like something crazy. Um, that's I definitely feel like I took that mindset from Bridge Runners, and have continued to apply it.
that's awesome. Especially being able to pay homage to where it comes from. Like a lot of people might not know where they get that instilled in them, or might not like give the flowers to the person that showed them that way.
Yeah.
That it's funny if we're talking about how much New York has changed. I almost would guarantee the kids in that neighborhood now are wearing pink socks.
Probably. Undoubtedly.
It's funny. Girls Run is the next thing I have on my list. I would love to know. I guess you already said a bit about like starting that after years of bridge runners, but can you tell me and the listener a bit more about Girls Run and when that started, how it started?
Yeah. So basically, kind of the evolution was that towards my latter days as a captain at Bridge Runners, I we there was this women's race series, um, and there was a women's marathon in San Francisco, and I we got access to some bibs, and I was like, I want to do that, and I want to train a group of women to do that, because we knew at that point, I knew you got to train for this stuff. Like I had already been marathoning a bit and learned the hard way that you got to run more if you want to run a marathon, and you got to like put some the pieces together. And so I had put together this women's training group like within Bridge Runners to train for the marathon in San Francisco. And it was a small group. I think there was maybe like seven of us or nine. Like it was not huge, but like significant. And we went out there and ran this race, and it had a big impact on me. It was also kind of like early social media days, and we did a lot of storytelling around it. And for the large part, it was like some of these women's first marathon, and um like it just was so I was so excited about like And I still am so excited about getting women running and like the transformative power of running, like because it was so powerful for me and like breaking a lot of stereotypes you have about yourself, like breaking barriers that you have about yourself. Like so much of it is like, how does it apply to your mindset in life? And I think like running long distance like teaches you that you can do hard things, that you're just capable. And so like I just got so as much as I loved Bridge Runners because I loved running with the guys and it was like a lot of guys. I was like always so excited to get more women. And it was actually like really, I learned it was really hard to get women to come out because women, there are these different barriers for women to like getting into running. And so basically, I was like, I want to create a space for women to come together. I want to remove some of the barriers. And like some of the barriers were women thinking they couldn't keep up, not wanting someone to like look at their body because maybe they weren't like in shape yet. Never having ran before, so like being just intimidated in general. And then also like there were sometimes weird dynamics where like a girl comes to the run club and then she has unwanted attention like from other people after. And so it was like there were all these kind of like different factors that were at play. And so I felt like compelled that there needed to be a space just for women. Um, but I wasn't like 100% sure. And so, like,
Oh,
initially, I started, oh, go ahead.
no, no, sorry, I was just coughing and trying to contain it. I'll edit
Okay.
that out. Keep going.
That's okay. Um, so initially coming out of Bridgerunners, I started Black Roses with another runner, Knox Robinson, and it was like it was meant to be like a women's training group, but we also had some guys in the group. And so it was like primarily women and then some guys. And it was spinning off of this idea of like making a space for women to train. And we did that for 2 years. And like it was amazing and like all sorts of like beautiful like stories of people kind of transforming themselves through training. But ultimately I was like it was almost like too hardcore. Like people it wasn't like reaching the audience that I wanted, which is like I really wanted like beginner women and I wanted people brand new and I wanted people of all levels and I felt like even with Black Roses we created a barrier to entry. Like so I started Girls Run. So I left Black Roses. I started Girls Run and Girls Run was a it started as just like a pop-up where I said I looked in my email inbox and I emailed every single woman that I had in my like email and I just said, "Hey, if you want come out and run." And we were going to do like 3 miles and super casual from this bike shop. And the first run like 18 women showed up. And I was like, "Oh, okay, people there are people that want to do this." And so then we just kept doing it and it turned into um a weekly ultimately I turned it into a weekly track workout because I also like in trying to solve for removing barriers, like pace differences is a barrier. Like there are people who with Girls run 6-minute miles or faster, and there are people who run 13-minute miles or run walk. And like it's very challenging to like kind of create a space that's inclusive of all of that. So I made it a track workout and I was like, we'll meet at the track. No one gets lost. People can take breaks. People can run as hard as they want. People can run as easy as they want. The whole point is just like bringing women together. And yeah, this is year 12. we've been we've been going and going. And actually we have every year we get a resurgence of like we get new women every week. And the energy right now is like really high. We have all these young women coming out who are just like are in such a cool space. Um, like society has changed also in the last 12 years. Like when I first started Girls Run, people were like, an all women's group. That's why. Like, and I actually had people telling me that I was like a sexist for doing it. Like I got a lot of like negative feedback.
I've never heard that take on that type of thing. That's kind of wild.
It was wild. So Vice magazine had done a feature on us, and Vice is kind of they're provocative.
Yeah.
So they had done a feature on us like in the early days, and basically I think the title of the article was like Jessie Zapo is fighting sexism in the running community or something like that. It was a provocative tagline, and they just tore me apart. And I think this was on like Facebook because I don't even know, it was not even like on Instagram or whatever, but I got like torn apart by trolls.
It was probably MySpace.
It might have been MySpace. Either way, I like couldn't even look at it. I was like, "Oh my God." Like they were being so nasty and so mean that I had like created this like women's group. And I was just like, "Oh my God." Yeah, it was a different time. It doesn't feel like that long ago, but like public perception was not in favor of like women's only spaces at that moment. And then it all shifted like a year or two later. So, and now things are, the young women that like show up today are like, they have a different life experience. And they're like, yeah, of course, I was Googling women's only clubs and like, that's how we found you. So it's like people are actively searching out this type of space. Whereas when we were creating it, we were like, is anyone going to want this space? So super interesting.
Just out of curiosity of you, I mean, the first meeting at 18 people, what does a meeting look like now for attendance?
Yeah. So, like, we had a run Wednesday night and we had almost 30 women come out. Um, and that's kind of like a normal workout for us, is somewhere in the like 20 to 30 range. But like at one point, I think in our WhatsApp group is like we have a chat group that people can join. Many of the women have been with us from day one. And then we get like lots of new women all the time. And our chat group is somewhere like close to 125 women are in there. Um, but I remember one year I don't know why, but I felt like compelled to keep attendance. So we had like an attendance like spreadsheet. And like within that year, we'd had like over 300 different women come out and run with us. And I was like, yeah, like so many people have ran with Girls Run. And there's like the hardcore diehard folks that are like repping Girls Run everywhere, every race. Like they wear all the merch. They're like ride or die. And then like we get visitors from overseas. We have folks who are Girls Run who've moved to other cities. So it's definitely this like community and collective space. And I think it's kind of similar. Bridgerunners is sort of like that as well, where at one point Bridgerunners was the only run crew probably in the world and in New York City. And so everyone had at some point, if you were an alternative runner or an urban runner, everyone had at some point ran with bridge runners. Like it was kind of like so many of the even like current clubs were people that came out of bridge runners. So in a way, Girls Run kind of like has almost like a similar legacy, which is like everyone has a friend that's ran with Girls Run, or everyone has ran with Girls Run at some point, um, kind of like in the women's space, which is cool. There's no like expectation for you to show up. Is just show up if when you're ready and when you want to. And for some people, that's every week, and and then people have created like friend groups out of it, and we've done lots of trips, um, and we've had teams of people training for things. So yeah, it's kind of it's organic for sure.
Yeah, I mean, all of that truly, truly impressive. Very cool. I'm wondering about the consistency, not of the run club itself, but of the attendees. Like, how many people do you think are like seasoned runners and kind of have found a place to go every week and run? And how many people are like just, Googling women's only run groups or whatever, finding you that way and are running for the first time or run clubbing for the first time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, for example, so every run we circle up before the run starts, and I talk about what we're going to do, and then we go around the circle and people say their name, and then we have like a an icebreaker question. So like the question this week was, what's your favorite vegetable? But like it could also be like, what are you looking forward to this week, whatever. So in that opportunity I also get a chance to kind of get a gauge for like who is new there. Like I know everyone who is with us, versus like some run clubs you just show up and then you just take off. And so like there's a good chance you might not know like who's even running with you. But like I kind of designed it this way because I want to know who is running with us. And so I would definitely say it's probably like 75% of who shows up to the workout is a regular. And the regulars at this point tend to be fairly seasoned runners. And then probably 25% are brand new. So not this week, but the week before, I had a couple of women. And so typically after the run too, people will come up and like I'll add them to the WhatsApp group. I had two women say that this was their first run club experience ever. And I was like, and they were like, it was awesome. Like, thank you. And so it's so interesting because like with a group like ours, and probably a lot of groups, like if it's open, like anyone could show up. So we do get women sometimes that come and they're like, I don't even really run. Like we had a woman that was like, she told me halfway through, she's like, I don't run. And I was like, okay, well, you're doing it now. And we ended up giving her like kind of like some run walk advice to build up her stamina. But yeah, it's like we get people who have never run with a run club before, who haven't actually done much running at all. And then we also have people that were former like competitive athletes. Like one of my good friends, I met her because someone told her to come to Girls Run, and she was a former pro track and field athlete. So like we have pro athlete level people. We have people who've been marathoning for 25 years. We have people running who run ultra marathons. And then we have people who are like, this is the first time they ran 3 miles. So it's really, it feels to me like really special to be able to hold a space that can be a place for all of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's extremely cool. And that to me seems like the ideal split. Like 75 return, 25 new. That seems like the exact ideal audience.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like sometimes when I think about how some of the women, like my two co-captains, Amira Omar and Rashida Herndon, we've been running together since way before Girls Run. So I've got like almost 20 years of running with Rashida, and then like Amira probably like 15. So and then we basically it's like we are these friends that talk every day, and then we get to see each other every week, and then we get to hold this space for other women. And when I think about it, I'm like, this is so rare and we're so lucky that we have this opportunity to like continue to move our bodies in this way, but also to like share our love of running with other people, especially younger women. And then also like maybe make some like lifelong friendships. It's it's I feel really lucky. Really lucky.
Yeah, I would say you are for sure. 20 years, 15 years running friendship, that's epic. I only know a couple people that I've known for that long. That's amazing. Maybe I'm asking too analytical of questions, but I have one more numbers one. Out of that 25% new people, how many of them become like recurring faces?
Yeah, so it's interesting because you never know. You never know who it's going to really stick for. But you start to get a sense, like I start to get a sense like when I'm seeing the same person like a couple weeks in a row. And so it's interesting because each season, so basically we kind of split our workouts between like winter time and summer. And spring and fall kind of fit into summer. Um, but when it's really cold, we meet out of Brooklyn Running Company just because like the track is not it's not possible to just be like standing out there. So in the winter, we do hill repeat workouts on the Williamsburg Bridge. We meet at Brooklyn Running Co. for a bag check. You can stay warm there, and then we go out and we like run the bridge. And then we make our way to the track. So we're about to start track season in May, and we'll probably be on the track from May all the way through, depending on the weather, it could be all the way through to December. And we always see like some people love the bridge, some people love the track, and we sometimes see different people. So I'm curious, like the girls that we have right now that just started coming in the last, as the weather's gotten nice and are like really loving the bridge. Like, let's see if they love when we go to the track, because maybe they will or maybe they won't. And then there's also like a squad of people who are like only come out for track season, because they love the track. So yeah, like there's always people who come, and I think for whatever reason, like they're like, yeah, maybe it just doesn't stick for them. And that's okay. Like the whole thing about what we're trying to do is create a space that's like challenging to you, but like challenged by choice. And for some women, like it really sticks, and then they keep coming, and then they become a part of the cohort. So, and I think also like what I've observed, and this was with Bridgerunners, this is with Adidas Runners, because I worked for Adidas Runners for 10, almost 10 years, and with Girls Run, like the life cycle too, for some people is usually like a year or two. And then they like New York is kind of transient, so people like move. So there's also like, I mean, I consider myself a lifer, and I think my co-captains are lifers here. Like this is what we do, and you know, um, we're kind of we are the foundation, we're the roots. But then a lot of the women who come are only living in New York for a short period of time. Like we had a really awesome member from South Korea, that her husband had to move to New York for work. She came and started running with us. She brought her daughter. We loved her so much. We got really close with her, and then they had to move back to Korea. So like that's also really common, is sometimes like women come and then they're a part of the group like for 1 or 2 years, and then they're like, I got to move to San Francisco now for work. So there's definitely like in New York, there can be a transient aspect to groups, which is also what makes it kind of so special that we do have a core of like New Yorkers who have been there for 12. They've been a part of the group for 12 years, and they'll remain a part of the group whether they show up every week or not.
Yeah, never nice to like lose a friend to moving away, but it is really nice that you could like be a part of their experience in the city while they were there, and they can like take the sentiment of that anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have led with this, but it's funny. A lot of guests I have are kind of requested. Like I hear a lot of the listeners or in the comments and stuff, people are saying you should interview so and so. You were really requested by other guests, which I think is almost more interesting. Like you don't know who she is, but my girlfriend is an immense fan of you and what you built. Alex also is like one of my favorite guests. We become friends. Terry also recommended you. It's one thing to hear from people telling me you should talk to someone, but when I hear people who I've had amazing conversations with say you should talk to this person, that's like a different echelon of guest for me, and I think it was really incredible to be able to talk. I think everyone that said to talk to you was 1,000% right. I really enjoyed this. I think you were an amazing guest. I hope you enjoyed it a bit as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I That's a huge compliment, and thanks for giving me good thought starters. I know I can really talk about running because I love it so much. So thank you for giving me the space.
Oh, no problem. The pleasure is definitely all mine. Sarah and I will actually be in New York for the marathon in October, but I think as of now, Sarah doesn't have a bib, so I think we're just gonna come, be a part of whatever Minor Planet is doing, and just kind of hang out. And Sarah will kind of get to experience it without all the hard parts as well. But I would love if you guys would have her. I would love for her to be able to come do a run with Girls Run.
Oh, 100%. We would love to have her.
Yeah, that would be super fun. And I know she didn't ask me to set up a play date, but I'm doing it anyway because I think it would be incredible. Before I don't want to take up any more of your day than I said I would. So before I kind of kick us both off, do you want to let anyone listening know where they can find you or any of the things you're involved with? The mic is yours. Please promote at will.
Yes. So I guess one of the places where I'm most visible is on Instagram at Jessie Zapo. It's Zapo with one P, so it's JESSIE ZAPO. Um, I talk a lot about running there. It's kind of my like open diary. Um, but yeah, like Girls Run NYC is also on Instagram. Those are kind of like primary outlets. We encourage people to just show up to Girls Run. Like we're easy to find. We put the info on our IG. There's no sign up. And yeah, like honestly, like I people can DM me, like you can message me like through my IG. Like I feel like that's kind of a direct portal to me. So if someone felt compelled and they wanted to ask me a question or they want to come out and run, that's probably the best way.
I'm always in awe when guests provoke people to DM them at the end. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna sound like you grumpy old man. I hate DMs. I answer them and I get they make everything run, and I probably wouldn't have a podcast without them, but I don't want more DMs, and I love when people invite people to DM them. I just think it's like a wild approach. I'm sure saying this, people are gonna DM me about hating DMs, and please do that. It's funny, but yeah, I'm always in awe of people who welcome more correspondence.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and with a grain of salt, I will do my best. But I think one thing I try to do is like, yeah, I don't know. I try to be responsive to folks because like you just never know. Like maybe you may be able to help somebody, or you may be able to connect someone. And I think that's for me, one of the most beautiful things about social media is like, you know, you you have this ability to connect with others, and they could be somewhere on the other side of the world. And I've made friends that way and then seen them in real life. So you never know.
Now I feel bad about saying that. You've DM shamed me, and now
No.
I welcome all the correspondence. I gotta be more positive.
No, I get it. I get it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'll shoot you an email about assets for the posts and stuff. And also I would love to put you and Sarah in touch so you can run together when we're in town. That would be amazing.
Yes, please.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend and whatever else you need to enjoy. Enjoy it.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure is all mine again. Thank you.
Of course. All right. Enjoy your day.
Will do. Peace.
Bye.